Okay, so it's this guy, Mele. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's doing some he's doing some big things. He's doing a lot of tracks with Diplo, a lot of stuff on Defected. So he sort of went back into like tribal house, which is kind of like OG tribal house, like from back in the day. But I guess it sounds fresh to some extent. So the thing with these particular records, obviously the most important thing is sample selection, and none of this is going to be exactly identical. So I want to go over a couple of tactics that I hear these kind of records all have in common that I think is going to help you guys with the production. It's very, if you listen to this drop here, I'm going to show you. Like a lot of times when you're listening to these grooves, like it's very difficult to get this kind of like this natural flow bounciness in the drums because of a couple of things: lack of not enough compression, and then also not enough parallel compression. So I'll get into that now. So basically, let me show you kind of like what I did. It's obviously not even remotely close to what that is because this is all sample-based music, so it's impossible for me to get it exactly, but here's sort of what I did yesterday. So I actually decided to go for more dynamics because his track is very squashed on drum. So as you can see, like my I'm not I didn't I wanted to say mine is a bit of a like a more modern processing. I wouldn't want to call it more modern. He just went for like more of like an old school, very squashed sound. So I'll kind of show you both. So for basically for the biggest thing for the vocals on this particular record, it's about these triplets basically. But I kind of layered a bunch of things actually, and it sounds like this. So these here, these are just some vocal fills that are not really that relevant to what I want to go over here. But here's what Isaz was struggling with. I literally drew these in because the thing is, like, what he started doing is trying to mimic this, right? And then he was like drawing in the midis. And I guess being aware that it's a triplet, but the problem I encountered that I wasn't able to get that groove at all. It was just really, really hard to get that groove because the drums themselves are so like loose that I went in and I literally drew these in. Like, look, a lot of these, like in here, for example, it's not even on the grid. So I just went pop, 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 pop. Like I literally like I took the grid off and I started like placing these sort of like all through. So that was a really important trick that I actually learned with these kind of particular records, is that you have to really kind of let like if you're going to do a tribal tech record, which is what this is, you have to swing everything. Like you have to swing everything because if your drums are like this your bass line is, or your lead is kind of like too stiff, it's not gonna really work. So that's sort of the vocal. There's not really anything crazy other than the fact that what I did. Oh yeah, so I'll show you what I did essentially. Since I I don't have this sample, this is what it is like. And by the way, I didn't do the same rhythm. He's like da 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 da. I did a little bit of different. So what I did, I just took a sampler in Ableton. I'm gonna show you guys, and I found a vocal that sounds like this. Let's see how it sounds without any sort of. Let me see what it sounds like without the looping. I want to basically do this. Okay, so this is the sample. I'll play you the full sample in its original form. The hell? Let me see if I could pull it. I'm gonna play it, the full note, so you guys can see it. It's because I have the filters, yeah.
Dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dance.
I don't even know. I think Giannis, I think he is not the same one that was in the. I totally found this one by accident on Splice, but I just, because you need that, like, if you're trying to get that attacky type of a vocal,
Dance.
that you have to get, because sometimes like people will be like looking for vocals. Let's see, like, I don't know.
Expressive music. Expressive.
See, these are nice. These are nice. Like, they got those attacks, but.
So.
Come on, boy.
You know, like, come on, boy, for example, the only thing you can use here is so you have to be listening to these attacks.
That's right.
See?
Ooh, I like
See,
it.
like, ooh would be ooh, ooh, ooh. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like what I did here. I was trying to find that because in the track is that right? You know what I mean? I could have probably remade that. The easiest thing I could have done is that. I don't even know. I spent like a long time. Oh my god! There you go. Like, just redo it with your mouth sometimes and process it. You know what I mean? I don't even know. Okay, I'll bet you that's what he did, because getting that groove is difficult when you're drawing things in. But whatever. So let's go on to the next important pieces. So I'm gonna show you the main groove. I always bust my kicks and my bass lines together, and I actually was able to snag the kick from the track itself at the very beginning, which is another thing that I love doing. I love sampling. Like look, like it has a little bit of that. You know, it's whatever, but it doesn't matter. Like, in the mix, it's gonna sound fat, and it sounds nice, you know. So with the bass line, here's what I did. It's kind of interesting what I did with the bass line. So if you listen to this bass line, there's a movement going bum da da bum da da bum. Now that papa upstairs, it could be made with percussions maybe, but I don't know. I remade it with a bass line. I did it like this. And the kick is the original kick. So what I did here is, like, a lot of times if you're trying to like mimic a bass line, and and it's not really molding in very well, the best thing that you can do is you can shape these, get rid of these bodies, like look at this. With the kick. So on the bass line, it was fairly simple shit. It was, what did I do? I basically have a sine wave, which is the second on. The what's it called? The initial wave that I started with the saw wave. And what I was gonna tell you guys, every single bass line I'm making now, I'm focusing very heavily on filter automations. Look. Filter automations are so important. I even put filter automations on my effects. Look. I wish I could mute this. Oh, let's take out this filter automation. What a lot of people don't understand is that, like, bass lines, like the difference between guys that make great bass lines and guys that make average bass lines in the is in the movement of the bass lines. Like your ears, like just like our brains doesn't know why it likes it, but it does, right? Because it's got that sexy to it, you know. Like, so filter automations is probably your best friend when it comes to, like, look how much you can really kind of mold your bass line with this groove here. Look. Look. Versus, you know, like guys sometimes will just put in the meaties of like the low end and stuff and be lazy with it. Like, I go in there and I'm like, oh, I forgot to add this one. So the sine gives it a little bit. It's kind of interesting because I have the saw on the low end. So the sine is kind of giving it that ringing. Like, it's not much, but it's there. And then obviously without filter automations, I mean, it's just disastrous. Okay, and then one last trick I want to tell you guys before I move on to the next section is, when you're doing filter automations, add noise into it and make sure that you select noise here so it captures the filter so it doesn't stick out. Because on bass lines, especially on all my Moog bass lines, I love putting like a fat, like, white noise when you're taking off the high end, because you don't hear the hissing, but you hear kind of like the growling essentially. So start adding some white noise to your patterns in general. So that's your bass line. So I got my bass line. You have some compression here, drum bus, ozone, little EQing, a little bump over here, 2.1 dB at 8K. I could probably do even more. It depends how much presence you want created also. Like, a lot of times, like, his track, like, look. Like, the low end doesn't really have too much like, the low end has presence, it doesn't have any high end presence. Right. So, okay, so that's that for the groove. All right, so let's go to the percussions now. Okay, let me see the percussions. All right, so this is kind of like what we're getting into, like the importance. All right, so when it comes to percussions for these kind of records, Okay, one thing you're gonna probably hear is how squashed they are, okay? So I'm gonna go through everything that we're doing here and you will see what I'm talking about. So in terms of percussions, you know, you got your I really went in and chopped. You gotta go in and anal it. Like I didn't go like crazy with it, but you gotta, you know, claps. See, like, look, this was a mistake right here. But listen what it does. Right? Versus. See? It gave it a lift, which I like. I mean, it was totally by accident. Don't be afraid to, like, fuck things around like that, you know? Second clap, then this is the second layer. So this initial layer was this. Like when I'm working on my loops, like I really go in there and I really fuck things around and listen to the rhythm, because the problem with a lot of producers that I hear is that they slap these loops together and just kind of hope that God will give them a perfect rhythm, and a lot of times that's what happens. But in most cases, what happens is you're putting things in places where they shouldn't be, like rhythmically and dynamically, right? So like in this case, I could have just slapped this loop here, my initial loop, which was this. Right? It's cool, but the problem is that I didn't like the high end on it, and I also didn't like the full rhythm. So I actually made it into a two-part section on this particular sample, because I like these initial two hits. Because here's a little trick that I saw. On a drop here, what he does... Pa, 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 pa. There's like a little, like a cowbell. Ta, 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 ta. So it's almost like an impact sample, like a impact thing that he did. So I wanted to mimic that, except instead of a cowbell, I used that loop and I went. So it's not a pa 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 pa, but it's pram pam, and then back to the normality, right? So, well, it doesn't go like that, but yeah. So, and then I got my hat. Do you see we're grooving? Again, this is another loop that is really important, and look at the original. And here, look how much we did on this loop. This is the original loop. We pitched it down 5, and we took out a lot of the transient, which is what you guys should start doing more. Look. Right. So first we take out the transient. Pitch it. And then you start molding. You know what I mean? Look how, like, that frequency. Yeah, because now you can go. See this frequency here? It fills it in. Yeah. But what about? You see? Look. It's not needed here. Look. How clean is that versus this? So, well, that's, let's keep going, because that's just, yeah. So, all right. So, and then the final loop is. Probably do a little gate. I would do it like this. More gating. All right, so here's the most important thing that like just because you have all these loops chopped up, that it's not going to give you that effect, that bounce that I'm talking about. So here's what we have going here. So first of all, I literally have a side chain on the whole fucking drum bus, okay? And I know that that sounds wild maybe to some of you guys, but it's not so wild. In certain tracks, that's what you have to do. So a lot of times when you're trying to, you're like, how are they getting that, like, that bounce, you know what I mean? They literally side chaining like a bus, you know what I mean? Like the whole bus, like, you know? And you can control it. So side chaining the entire bus is what gives you that Daft Punk effect, right? Because a lot of people are like, how is Daft Punk like doing this? Because what Daft Punk used to do was genius. They used to side chain the whole bus like this, right? And then they would take the kick and then it'll, when it comes in on its own, it's like, we're not going to obviously do that in this case. We're not working on a Daft Punk record, but you understand what I'm talking about. So this is the first. Here's the other thing is that I have kickstart on some channels individually as well. Like this clap, for example, also has it. You see? But I don't want it to be this big, so this one doesn't have it. This doesn't have it. This is here good. Here's another side chain. Even though we have it there, we have another one here. See, look. But I'm not trying to go for that shuffly, right? I want... Right? So we did that. So that's trick number one, right? Side chaining actual drum buses and side chaining individual claps and stuff like that. It's quite common actually. And the thing is, a lot of young producers, they are scared to God forbid try it because they think it's you know, it's not correct, you know what I mean? So but I urge you guys to try it. So basically what we're gonna move, okay, so we're gonna move on to the second most important aspect for these kind of like tribally records, and that's parallel compression. I am parallel compressing the shit out of these drums, and probably would do even more, because if you listen to his record, there is a lot of parallel compression here. Mine is not nearly enough. And when you know that when you don't have enough parallel compression is with these kind of records, is when it sounds kind of not thin, but not like that. It's more like versus one of those flow, you know what I mean? So let me show you what we got here. So let's group this section. So the first thing that I would do is probably I need to get more lives. Like I need to put a little bit more life into these drums. So we're gonna give it my favorite little ozone. Okay, so that's the first thing we'll do. Second thing is we are sending this entire thing to a parallel compression bus. So this is what parallel compression is where you're sending an entire signal of anything. In our case, it's the percussions, into a separate bus, which we will solo here. and you have a compressor here that is literally squashing the crap out of the signal. If I take this off, you see? But here's the thing, parallel compression, because you're probably thinking, oh, look, those peaks are so nice, right? But we already got those peaks. That's the point. We are trying to create this. We're trying to create that more of like, think of it like, imagine if you're like ripped, you know, you go to the gym and you have like nice muscles and stuff like that. This is to give you volume, right? It's not to give you definition. You already have definition. It's to give you volume. It's to make your sound bigger, like to give it a little bit of like, almost like a buffer underneath, you know? And you don't have to worry about phasing in this case ever, because you're basically doubling up the volume. That's all you're doing. But you're squashing it, so you're creating RMS. That's the most important thing about parallel compression, is that it's going to create a lot of RMS for you, which gives you that body, you know? So the key about parallel compression is really squashing it. I would even squash this more. And then very important to have an EQ. You got to have an EQ on parallel compression, because you don't want those low ends doubling up, of course. It's only the kind of, you know, and you also don't want the highs. You know? And then I have another side chain just in case. Just to catch some more peaks, because this is all in the same boat as getting rid of parallel compression, is getting rid of peaks and adding volume, which is what we're doing with the side chaining here. So now, and then again, so once you get all of that, now you're coming to the most important thing, of course, which is your sort of post-processing. On my master, I don't have too much, but what I would suggest is, I normally don't have a compressor on my master. I have limiters and EQ. But in these particular records, I can add more groove and bump. So I will add a compressor on the master. This I'll probably add another EQ to add a little bit of life on the mix. And then what I would do, since it's a very kind of like low-end driven track, 1 second, I got to charge my computer. Don't die. Yes, it didn't die. Damn. I'll tell you, if that was a PC, it's over. Apple gives you that little extra. It's like, Max, don't worry, relax. I know, we're dying, but we're not like dying. You know what I mean? Apple gives it to you until 1%. They're like, Max, 1%. PC, it's like this. Maxim, don't worry about it. We got at least 12. Oh, what happened? It's gone. It's over, you know? Yeah. So, oh yeah, so this initial hit right here, really important. Like, I know this may be not like a typical like record that you guys are like into doing and stuff like that, but I think it's important to learn from all sorts of different scenarios and stuff, and I really like how, like, like these kind of records, they don't have like, you don't need like crazy build-ups in terms of drums, but look how big this build-up is. So it's like something to learn. It's like you don't need, I don't even, it's just like, this is my only white, oh, this white noise is not even on, actually. So what I did here, there's this plugin called Easy Wash, which is free for Ableton users, but it just creates basically like white noise, increases the wetness of this same loop here. And then on that particular vocal record, a vocal one here, I mean, I just kind of looped it and then did the same automation. Oh, and then, oh, these are, I gotta turn these on. They weren't even on. That's why. Okay, there you go. So this is what I was gonna tell you. The other way to fill up your mix is the reason why I had these secondary vocals here, right here, and they were muted. That's why the mix sounded empty. Listen. Yeah, so listen to these fillers. Okay, so they're almost kind of like percussions that support the vocal, but they're not really a vocal and they're not really a percussion. So it's a perfect sound that I found right in between that could be like the intermediary of like, hey, drums, you guys do your thing, vocals, you do your thing. We're gonna just add this little, I don't know what the fuck I am, but I'm here with a little reverb, and it makes a huge difference, and that's kind of like, and then you can even bring it up. And look, and you can parallel compress this as well. Look. I have to put the limiter. Look at the parallel compression that this is creating. And without it, you see? And without it, look. You see, like, it's not even, I was like, I knew in my head that there was something wrong, like when we were doing the mission, like I had it on initially, and then when I started showing you the shit, I muted them because I was showing the vocals, and I instantly knew that there was something missing, like some part. So yeah, that's basically how you make these kind of records. Like I said, I know maybe for some of you this is not really the direction, but the sound is really coming back big right now, so the only final thing that I can suggest, that the trick that he kind of implemented here that really worked very well, is playing with your mind on the dynamics of the attack. Listen to the dynamics of the build-up. You hear a lot of that, right? And then when it comes in, it's like the pump is starting, right? That's what he did. So I would even put yeah. I'm gonna tell you guys, I did this fucking shit in 10 minutes. I'm very proud of it. I can't, like, it's like I was just like, all right, let me see the chop. You guys should do this kind of stuff, even if it doesn't, like, within your style and stuff. I have so much fun recreating records, because if you put the damn song in your project and you actually like loop sections and be like, oh damn, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. You're gonna learn so much, like the way, Izaz was telling me today on the phone. I was talking, well, not on the phone. He's the one who asked me for this fucking thing, so I sent it to him, and he's like, "Oh my god, it sounds perfect. I want to see how you did it." So, but he was saying like he learned in Tool Room Academy videos and stuff where they like if you take for example like we can try this here actually and just for fun and as a final experiment. Putting like looking where your bass lines are and kind of like putting percussions there, right? So I mean we can just literally do to make this life easier, we can do like a 909 or whatever. No, let's make it fun. Perk. Let's say, all right, let's get a bunch of sounds. Let's take that. Let's take that. Why not? There you go. Perfect. So we took these sounds and we're going to create a couple of audio channels here. And we're going to just kind of look and see what the bass line is doing and try and place percussions around the groove of where the bass line is. So for example, I mean, and just there's going to be a lot of trial and error, of course, you know, but this is something that is actually really genius in a sense of that it kind of makes you avoid fucking throwing loops in the mix and hoping that it's going to work out, but actually like trying to see what can be done here. Like let me just do a couple more here and then we can kind of see our end result. Again, I have no idea what these loops are doing at all. We're just gonna go ahead and see what the fuck happened. Oops. All right. Okay, so obviously, whoops. So I would go, look, this is a sick loop. So I would go half actually. Here. See? This, okay, all right. So now I'm like, all right. You know what I mean? Like this is good now, like you see? You see, but you basically don't have to think about it because now you're like, I know I'm in the groove because I got these elements, you know, I'm in the groove here because of my baseline hits and stuff like that. So that's another really interesting like technique that you guys can try. And let's see. Yeah, I think like you don't understand like how crazy I am sometimes with the shit that I do with percussions. Like I automate them even sometimes. I'll put this one to the left, maybe I'll put this one to the right, and then sometimes I will even, for example, I will do a send. I'm gonna go send here to the right, and then I'm gonna do a send on the delay. But let's say that this is the only delay I'm using just for this particular sound. So what I would do is, so I would go, look, and then on the delay, I'm going to pan this shit left. You see? Sick, right? So that kind of stuff. You see, it's like, oh, what happened? It's like I got hit on the right side. It's like, you know, when somebody comes up to you and taps your shoulder here and you go here and they already hit you on this side. That's what you have to do with these percussions because like your brain is constantly trying to figure out what's going on, right? Constantly. It's like, so if you put your brain in a situation where he's kind of like grooving and everything is super sexy, but you're kind of like ping-ponging inside of his head. Like you're instantly making a lot of really interesting things. Like for example, Giannis, like I think with the stuff that you make, which is super like, it's very cool and interesting and experimental and all of that stuff. I would be sitting there creating like 3D mixing. So when I'm sitting there and listening to your songs with my eyes closed, like things are like flying like this, like, I hear like a hat that hits here and then down low right here. I think that's something that is I've definitely overlooked for many, many years in my career, and something to take advantage of. And then again, it's also understanding when to take advantage of it or not, because I see a lot of guys sometimes who are like making a lot of uh, stuff that doesn't need to have that effect. Like for example, when you guys will listen to my album Wish You Were Here, there's a lot of shit in mono, because sometimes if you're trying to make that like sample based Defected style record, I mean, you don't want certain tracks to have those certain elements. It's all about having the knowledge and on the understanding when to use it is what it is. It's like, now I'm like a robot. It's like I'm listening to a record or I'm working on a record. I'm like, oh, that needs that. Oh, that needs to be more mono, or that needs to be more stereo. So the key is to learn how to do it, not to do it every time, if that makes sense.